Alright, hello everybody. I hope you are all having a good hump day. It was fairly normal on my end, although for some stinking reason it just will not stop raining over here. I swear it rained for like 3/4 of this month, and I am getting real sick and tired of it. I want some sunshine. But, anyways, we had a poll and you guys decided. So today we are going to be covering Flash Gordon. Now we're going to be talking about the character, his origin and whatnot. I am going to do one video on the movie, though if it starts playing any Queen music, I am immediately going to mute that. I'm just giving you a fair warning now because I still have no idea why I got copyright struck, and I'm not risking it by playing fucking Queen on my stream. So, unfortunately, if the music comes on, I'm either muting it or I'm finding a different video to play. So, just gotta light something on fire real quick. Okay, so Flash Gordon, we'll start with Wikipedia, is the protagonist of a space adventure comic strip created and originally drawn by Alex Raymond. First published January 7th, 1934, the strip was inspired by and created to compete with the already established Buck Rogers adventure strip. So, Buck Rogers, science fiction adventure hero, feature comic strip created by Philip Francis Nolan. And this one debuted in 1929. Yeah. I Buck Rogers is one that I've heard of, but I know very little about. Okay. So, creation. The Buck Rogers comic strip had been commercially very successful, spawning novelizations and children's toys, and King Features Syndicate decided to create its own science fiction comic strip to compete with it. At first, King Features tried to purchase the rights to the John Carter of Mars stories by Edgar Rice Burroughs. However, the Syndicate was unable to reach an agreement with Burroughs. King Features then turned to Alex Raymond, one of their staffed artists, to create the story. So basically, Plan A was John Carter from Mars. Plan B, get one of the wages to do it. Alright. One source for Flash Gordon was the... Oh, no, not now. Was the Philip Weil novel When Worlds Collide. The book's themes of an approaching planet threatening the Earth and the athletic hero, his girlfriend, and a scientist traveling to the new planet by rocket were adapted by Raymond for the comic strip's initial storyline. So basically, Flash Gordon's a ripoff. Okay. Raymond's first samples were dismissed for not containing enough action sequences. Raymond reworked the story and sent it back to the Syndicate, which accepted it. Raymond was partnered with ghostwriter Don Moore, an experienced editor and writer. Raymond's first Flash Gordon story appeared in January 1934 alongside Jungle Jim. Now, who the heck is Jungle Jim? Is that a Tarzan ripoff? Fictional hero series of jungle adventures in various metas. The series began... Okay, so it doesn't look like a Tarzan ripoff. Looks like he's just Asian-based hunter Jim Bradley, who was nicknamed Jungle Jim. Okay. The Flash Gordon strip was well received by newspaper readers, becoming one of the most popular American comic strips of the 1930s. As with Buck Rogers, this success of Flash Gordon resulted in numerous licensed products being sold, including pop-up books, coloring books, and toy spaceships and ray guns. In-story information, team affiliates, Dale Arden, Dr. Hans Zarkov, and the Defenders of the Earth. So not much of the wiki info, which is odd because usually the wiki info has a shit ton of information, but we have the fan website right next to us, so maybe we'll get more from there. The Flash Gordon comic strip ran as a Sunday strip from 1934 until 2003. That's a pretty good run. And daily strip from 1940 to 1944 and 1951 to 1992. Reprints of the Sunday strip were syndicated by King Features Syndicate from 2003 until 2023. So, dang, this publishing company went around for a very long time. When Flash Gordon was relaunched with a new daily and Sunday strip. Okay, I swear I was not yawning like this before I started the stream. I only started yawning like this after I clicked the start stream button. Flash Gordon and Dale Arden meet Ming the Merciless for the first time in the comic serial. Yeah, I think that's the villain from the movie. The comic strip follows the adventures of Flash Gordon, a handsome polo player and Yale University graduate, and his companions Dale Arden and Dr. Hans Zarkov. The story begins with Earth threatened by a collision with the planet Mongo. Dr. Zarkov invents a rocket ship to fly into space in an attempt to stop the disaster. Half mad, he just kidnaps Flash and Dale. I might need these for later. Landing on the planet and halting the collision, they come into conflict with Ming the Merciless, Mongo's evil ruler. Oh no. I swear I was not this tired beforehand. Alright, for many years, the three companions have adventures on Mongo, traveling to the forest kingdom of Arborea, ruled by Prince Barin, the ice kingdom of Phrygia, ruled by Queen Fira, the jungle kingdom of Tropica, ruled by Queen Desira, the undersea kingdom of the Sharkmen, ruled by King Kala, and the flying city of the Hawkmen, ruled by Prince Voltron. I get the feeling that there is like several different love triangles that happen throughout the series, depending on where they are. They are joined in several early adventures by Prince Thun of the Lionmen. Eventually, Ming is overthrown, and Mongo is ruled by a council of leaders led by Barin. Flash and his friends visit Earth for a series of adventures before returning to Mongo and crashing in the kingdom of Tropica, later reuniting with Barin and others. Flash and his friends then travel to other worlds before returning once again to Mongo, where Barin, now married to Ming's daughter Princess Ara, has established a peaceful rule. Except for the frequent revolts led by Ming or by one of his many descendants. Doesn't sound very peaceful to me. What the hell? Alright. So in the 1950s, Flash became an astronaut who traveled to other planets besides Mongo. The long story of the Scorpy War takes Flash to other star systems, using starships that are faster than light. I am getting some major Star Wars vibes here. In addition to Ming and his allies, Flash and his friends also fought several other villains, including Azura, the Witch Queen, Baruka, chieftain of the Giants of Phrygia, and the fascistic Red Sword organization on Earth. Is that supposed to be fascistic? Yep, I haven't seen fascistic written out before, guys. Sorry. and Brazor, the tyrannical usurper of Tropica. After Raymond's tenure, later writers created new enemies for Flash to combat. Austin Briggs created Khan the Cruel, Ming's callous son. Prince Polon, who had the power to shrink or enlarge living creatures, the unscrupulous Queen Rubia, and Pyron, the comic master, who were among the antagonists introduced during Mac Rayboy's run. The Scorpii, a race of alien shapeshifters who desired to conquer the galaxy, were reoccurring villains in both Mac Rayboy and Dan Barry's stories. The Scorpii spacefighter ace, Baron Daktula, became a periodic nemesis of Flash in the late 70s stories. Alright, we got some international versions. King Features sold the Flash Gordon strip to newspapers across the world, and by the late 1930s, the strip was published in 130 newspapers, translated into 8 foreign languages, and was read by 50 million people. That's quite impressive. In the 1930s and 1940s, several newspapers in Britain carried Flash Gordon, including the Scottish Sunday Mail. In France, his adventures were published in the magazine Robinson under the name Guy Eclair. Dale Arden was named Camille in the French translation. Okay. In Australia, the character and strip were retitled Speed Gordon to avoid a negative connotation to the word Flash. At the time, the predominant meaning of Flash was showy, connotating dishonesty. Okay, so so basically he was accidentally being called Con Man Gordon over in Australia. However, events in the 1930s affected the strip's distribution. Yeah, gee, I wonder what. Newspapers in Nazi Germany were forbidden to carry the Flash Gordon strip, while in fascist Italy it was restricted to 2 newspapers. In 1938, the Spanish magazine Adventuro, the only publication in the country to carry Flash Gordon, ceased publication because of the Spanish Civil War. Man, Nazis really did not like Flash Gordon for some reason. I mean, it's not like Flash Gordon wouldn't be the only comic strip to be anti-tyrant or anti-dictator, especially around that time, but I find it so funny that they had such a problem with Flash Gordon. The outbreak of World War II resulted in Flash Gordon being discontinued in many countries. In Belgium, artist Edgar Piers Jacobs was therefore asked to bring the current Flash Gordon story to a satisfactory conclusion, which he did. Okay, so better with Belgian comic book creator, born in Brussels, one of the founding fathers of the Franco-Belgian comics movement. Okay. I think we may have seen him before in a different stream. After the war's end, the strip enjoyed a resurgence in international popularity. Flash Gordon reappeared in Italy, Spain, and West Germany, and it was also syndicated in new markets like Portugal and the Irish Republic. From the 1950s onward, countries like Spain, Italy, and Denmark also reprinted Flash Gordon newspaper strips in comic book or paperback novel form. In India, Flash Gordon comics were printed by Indrajal Comics. I wonder how he did in Russia at that time. Alright, the popularity of Raymond's Flash Gordon Sunday strip meant a daily strip was also introduced. This strip was drawn by Austin Briggs and ran from 1941 to 1944. After Raymond left Flash Gordon in 1944 to join the U.S. Marines, the daily strip was canceled and Briggs took over the Sunday strip. Although Raymond wanted to return to drawing Flash Gordon after the war's end, King Features did not want to remove Briggs from his position. To consolidate Raymond, King Features allowed him to create a new strip, Rip Kirby. What the heck is Rip Kirby? American strip, alright, featuring All right, Detective of Rip Kirby. The strip ran from... Okay. I'm looking at it like, is that supposed to be some sort of death threat towards Jack Kirby? Because it kind of does look like that. All right. After Briggs left the Sunday strip in 1948, he was succeeded by former comic book artist Mac Rayboy, who drew the strip until his death in 1967. Oh. In 1951, King Features created a new daily, Flash Gordon strip. This strip was drawn by Dan Barry. Barry was assisted during his tenure by Harvey Kurtzman and Harry Harrison. That sounds like a comic book name. Who both wrote scripts for the strip. Barry also had several artists who aided him with Flash Gordon's illustrations, including Frank Frazetta, Al Williamson, Bob Fujitani, Jack Davis, Sid Barry, Fred Kida, and Emil Gershwin. When Barry left the strip in 1990, the various artists and writers worked on Flash Gordon. The daily strip was ended in 1993. The final artist to work on Flash Gordon's Sunday strip was Jim Kefe. Kefe was occasionally assisted on the strip by other artists including Williamson, John Romita Sr., and Joe Kubert. King Features ended the Flash Gordon newspaper strip in 2003, although reruns of the Kefe's strips still appear in a few U.S. newspapers. And I'm guessing that has more to do with the fact that newspapers just are not really a thing anymore. On October 20th, 2023, it was announced that King Features Syndicate would relaunch Flash Gordon on October 22nd under cartoonist Dan Schad and would be released daily. The Sunday strip being an overview of the week's strips. Alright, then we got the strip bibliography. Okay, so Flash Gordon is regarded as one of the best illustrated and most influential of American adventure comic strips. Historian of science fiction art, Jane Frank asserted that because of his work on Flash Gordon, Raymond is one of the most famous science fiction artists of all time, although he never contributed an illustration to any science fiction magazine or book. Alright, so let's skip that ahead a little bit. Flash Gordon, along with Buck Rogers, was a big influence on later science fiction comic strips, such as the American Don Dixon and the Hidden Empire from 35 to 41 by Carl Pfeiffer and Bob Moore. In Italy, Guido Fantoni drew Flash Gordon in 1938 after the prohibition by the fascist regime. In Belgium, Edgar P. Jacobs was commissioned to produce a science fiction comic strip in the style of Flash Gordon. Jacobs' new strip, Le Réunion, or the U-Ray, began serial publication in Bravo in 1943. This version had text boxes which described the action and the dialogue, in the style of many Belgian comics of the time, similar to Hal Foster's version of Tarzan and Prince Valiant. In 1974, Jacob reformatted Le Réunion in order to include speech bubbles. Okie dokie, let's get down here. Flash Gordon was also an influence on early superhero comic characters. Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster based Superman's uniform of tights and a cape on costumes worn by Flash Gordon. Oh, okay. I think he mentioned that in his. They mentioned that in the Superman show or stream we did. Bob Kane's drawing of Batman on the cover of Detective Comics number 27. The first appearance of the character was based on a 1937 Alex Raymond drawing of Flash Gordon. And if you guys remember, when we looked up the picture of what apparently the original OG Batman design was supposed to be, it's Flash Gordon. It's basically just Flash Gordon. Alright. Dennis Nelville modeled the comics hero Hawkman's design on the Hawkmen characters in Raymond's Flash Gordon comic strip. In Avengers Infinity War, Iron Man mockingly refers to Star-Lord as Flash Gordon due to their similar appearances and both being space heroes. Yeah, Star-Lord has a lot in common with Flash Gordon from what I'm seeing. Science and track and field. Olympian Meredith C. Gordine's nickname, Flash Gordine, was based on Flash Gordon too. Yay! And of course we got the film serials, the 1980 movie that we will talk about a little bit, and official films, possible future films. So apparently they're trying to get another Flash Gordon movie off the ground. Got some television series. Oh, it was a cartoon. Alright, Defenders of the Earth, Flash Gordon. Radio serials, of course. Stage. In 1989, Lee Hanlon and Gary Gordon wrote a musical for children. Flash Gordon based on the comic. The musical premiered in 1989 in Oak Hall Performing Arts Theater in Gainesville, Florida. Oh my god. Oh my god, does that actually still exist anymore? Okay, Flash Gordon. Musical. Not the theme song. Alright, not that. Not the serials. Oh no, looks like there's no footage. Flash Gordon themes. So, aww, I wanted to see the musical. That looks like that sounds like it was hilarious. I wonder if it was similar to like the Superman musical where it was so bad that they just shoved it into the ether, hoping that nobody would ever find it ever. And yes, there was a Superman musical. It apparently really, 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 really sucked. And of course, you got a crap ton of comics. I believe Flash Gordon is with Dynamite now. Let's see. He was at Dark Horse. He wasn't Dynamite. Oh, he's at Mad Cave now. Mad Cave is doing a lot of good stuff. They're currently doing that Speed Racer comic and The Phantom. Alright. Strange Adventures magazine, published by Harold Heresy, featured a novel about Flash Gordon entitled The Master of Mars. A crap ton of novels. Novelization. The name Flash Gordon was emblazoned on the proscenium of a ride at the 1939 New York World's Fair. An article in Popular Science, March 1939, described how 150 people could enter a ride designed to resemble a rocket ship with a motion picture screen and vibrating seats for a simulated trip to another planet. The ride was located at the opposite end of the amusement zone from the parachute tower. Fairgoers walked around a simulation of Venus as a jungle planet. Well, they were far off from there. Inhabited by mechanical dinosaurs, to enter a Martian headquarters where weirdly costumed Martians and mechanically animated models of giant beasts enacted episodes from the adventures of Flash Gordon. The ride's Martians did not look like those in the 1938 serial, nor did the rocket ship. Did they even try? And of course, there are a bunch of reboots. We got DVD releases. We got some video games. Man, there's a lot of Flash Gordon stuff. Okay, so there's the general Wikipedia stuff. So let's take a look at the fan wiki and see if the fan wiki can give us a little bit more information. Okay, watch out! Harpy bats! I thought that said hairy bats in a minute. I'm like, those aren't hairy bats. Alright. Flash Gordon Wiki is a collaborative website about everything related to Flash Gordon. Alright. Flash Gordon news! Alright, so we can help build the web Wikipedia site. Alright, Flash Gordon cast. Okay, so we're gonna need to cartoon. So let's go with the original comic strip. Okay. Ah, no, go away. Go away. I don't like you. Alright, first words. Comic strip. Do the strip. Continue until 2003. Flash Gordon and his companions. Alright, so let's see if this link will take us to where we want to go. This page is about the character Flash Gordon. For others uses, see Flash Gordon disambiguation. Okay. Alright, Flash Gordon is the title character in Flash Gordon series who is thrust by circumstance into a space fiction, science fiction adventure. Well, technically he was kidnapped. Wait, we have to write it? Oh. But I don't want to write an article on him. I want to read an article on him. Those are two different things, dude. So, let's see. So that didn't help us. Alright, maybe, yeah, let's switch over to the videos. I hate switching over to the YouTube videos this early, but it's like the Wikipedia page has pretty much everything we needed technical-wise, but I wanted a video just about Flash Gordon. Alright, not the 80s movie. Retrospective, Tunnel of Terror. We are not talking about X-Men. Alright, how about we go with this Marvelous Videos video. Alright, Alright.
Flash Gordon. Origin. Explained. Upon hearing the name Flash Gordon, many of us instantly think of the campy cult film of 1980, but he's so much more than that. He's the first superhero to participate in interplanetary warfare, fighting against robotic armies, and taking part in spaceship battles. Some even consider him to be the ultimate savior of sci-fi, who has inspired and enriched several cinematic epics, like the Star Wars franchise and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Back in the early 30s, Buck Rogers was doing great commercially, and King Features Syndicate was motivated to have a character on similar lines. They asked their staff artist, Alex Raymond, to create a character, and Flash Gordon made his first appearance in the January of 1934 as a comic strip. When a catastrophic collision threatens Earth with the planet of Mongo, Dr. Hans Zarkov invents a spaceship to go to Mongo and remove the threat. He lures Flash Gordon and his love interest, Dale Arden.
Lures, kidnaps, same difference.
To come aboard the spacecraft Mongo, and the trio fights its evil ruler, Ming the Merciless. Flash, Dale, and Dr. Hans become a part of many adventures with different kingdoms of Mongo, like a flying city resided by the Hawkmen, or the Forest Kingdom ruled by Prince Baron. Historians and researchers of sci-fi art consider Raymond's Flash Gordon
This looks so campy. It looks fun, but it looks so campy.
to be one of the most detailed characters. Raymond's primary inspiration for Flash Gordon came from Philip Wiley's 1933 novel, When Worlds Collide. This video is dedicated to this classic pulp superhero and progenitor of modern superheroes.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content,
What the fuck just happened there? Ugh.
please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
The game's lost, Ming. Stop your attack on Earth and I'll spare your life.
Fantastic acting there, dude.
1. Before Flash Gordon, there was Buck Rogers. Before radio, television, films, and the internet, there existed something that gave people doses of science fiction and fantasy. As you may have correctly guessed, it was the pulp fiction magazines like Air Wonder Stories and Amazing Stories. These pulp magazines packed a bunch of thrilling and exciting tales, at least by the standards of the early 1900s. The granddads of today's fantasy geeks spent their time going on adventures with the likes of John Carter of Mars and Tarzan. People back then would live in the world of fantasy through these classic heroes and travel to far-off places and into the realm of anarchic jungles.
Well, nothing helps you forget about the Depression, like space travel.
Depths of space, and even beyond that, you have to consider the fact that the pulp magazines were the only source of these superhero stories. Naturally, they enjoyed the same love as enjoyed by the comics and movies of our contemporary times.
It's kind of strange how society back then saw all this fiction as, like, you know, kid stuff, or they saw it as like a lower art form, and it's like, yeah, well, they are way more remembered now than your sophisticated art form of the day, so screw you.
1928 issue of Amazing Stories featured a story titled Armageddon, 2412 AD, written by Philip Francis Nolan. The star of this story was Anthony Rogers, later renamed Buck Rogers. In 1929, the John F. Dill Company hired Nolan and cartoonist Richard Calkins to expand the story and convert the novella into a comic strip. John F. Dill Company used to provide content to local and outside newspapers. This gave Buck Rogers a pan of US publicity and exposure, and because Buck was an uber cool and novel character set in
It kind of looks like Cyclops there.
the early 25th century, he took the then superhero world by storm and transformed into a pop culture icon of sorts. Buck Rogers essentially became the progenitor of today's superheroes. Nolan's Another Story, titled The Air Lords of Han, also starred Anthony Rogers as the hero. According to the original story, however, Anthony, or Buck Rogers, was a mine inspector who got stuck in a cave-in and inhaled a mysterious gas, after which he went into a coma for almost 500 years. After the success of Buck Rogers,
Oh yeah, now I remember.
Flash Gordon entered the scene in 1934 and competed with Buck Rogers to dominate the world of comic strips.
Hold down!
Oh my god. Oh, the green screen looks awful.
Our trap play worked! They'll follow me for sure! Good!
2. Flash Gordon, spaceman hero of the science fiction comic strip. As mentioned in the previous entry, the Buck Rogers comic strip was a hit. Naturally, other business houses wanted to ride this wave, and King Features Syndicate decided to have their own science fiction comics to compete with Buck. They first attempted to buy the rights of John Carter of Mars, but the deal couldn't come to fruition, so they contacted one of their own artists named Alex Raymond to create a story and its character. Raymond's primary inspiration for Flash Gordon came from Philip Wiley's 1933 novel, When Worlds Collide. In this novel, An athletic young man travels with his girlfriend and a scientist to another planet. As soon as the comics hit the stands in 1934, they became an instant sensation. In fact, Flash Gordon would go on to become one of the most popular comic strip characters of the 1930s. Soon, there were licensed products, coloring books, toys, etc. Would you be surprised to know that the Flash Gordon comic strip ran for 50?
Oh, those are very suspicious looking tentacles there. Ugh.
59 years, from 1934 to 1992, and the Sunday strips ran for 69 years, till 2003, while King Features Syndicate is still syndicating reprints. Several publishers like King Comics, Charlton Comics, Gold Key Comics, etc. regularly published Flash Gordon stories. In 1988, DC Comics published a 9-issue miniseries written by Dan Jurgens. The story changed Flash Gordon from a polo player to a basketball player, and Mongo was no more on a collision course with Earth, although Ming was still a bad guy. In 1995, Marvel Comics published a 2-issue miniseries that Mark Schultz wrote. Dark
Wait, why only 2 issues? That's kind of odd.
Horse Comics started to reprint Flash Gordon comics in 2010, while a year later, Dynamite Entertainment published a new series titled Flash Gordon Zeitgeist. They also published a spin-off describing Ming's backstory and titled it Merciless: The Rise of Ming.
Flash! Stay back!
Don't flash, they'll kill you!
3. Flash Gordon Origin Explained. The comic strips revolved around the handsome polo player and Yale alumnus, Flash Gordon, and his companions, Dr. Hans Zarkov and Dale Arden. When Zarkov learned that a planet named Mongo was on a collision course with Earth, he invented a rocket to fly into space and reach Mongo.
Why am I getting Wallace and Gromit vibes? Like, he's just like a Wallace who's like, I want to go to the moon, so he builds a rocket in his basement. And this is giving me the exact same vibes.
To stop Earth's impending disaster by halting the collision. He turned almost crazy because of the threat and kidnapped Gordon and Arden.
He has a t-shirt with his name printed on it.
They managed to stop the collision, but come face to face with Mongo's evil and ruthless ruler, Ming the Merciless. In the time that Flash Gordon spent on Mongo, he came in contact with several different peoples and aliens on Mongo, like Prince Baron and his forest kingdom of Arborea, Queen Freya and her ice kingdom of Phrygia, Queen Desir and her jungle kingdom of Tropica, King Kala and his underwater kingdom of Sharkmen, etc. Flash and his allies managed to overthrow Ming the Merciless, and the planet is then reigned by a council of leaders that Baron led. Later on, Flash and his friends would come back to Earth before
Baron looks a lot like Robin Hood. Maybe that's the reason why he looks like that.
returning to Mongo, only to go on further adventures to different worlds. Apart from Ming the Merciless, Flash fought several other villains like the Witch Queen Azura, Ming's callous son Kang the Cruel, Pyron the Comet Master, etc. And during the 70s, Flash's recurring and prime nemesis was Baron Doc Tula. Flash Gordon doesn't possess any superheroes, but he is the man of great valor and dedication who performs superheroic tasks.
I think he was trying to say that Flash Gordon doesn't have any superpowers, which that's what I'm noticing. He doesn't have any superpowers, but you know, he still gets the job done, like Dick Tracy.
As he used to be a professional athlete on Earth, he is very agile and strong with good stamina. But most importantly, he is an efficient leader who combines his intellect with the combat skills like marksmanship and swordsmanship. In the later versions, he also became an astronaut and traveled to planets other than Mongo.
He put the ass back in astronaut. I still can't believe Katy Perry actually said that. Like, actually, let me look that up before I go on the record that she said that. Okay. Alright. Katie described her journey as a bold step meant to inspire the next generation, young girls. Yeah, Yep, she did in fact say she's going to put the ass back in astronaut. Why did she think that that would be a good thing to say? Like, yes, that's what this world needs. Sexy astronauts with an OF account.
Promise me if you kill me, you'll team up with Fulton and fight Ming.
4. Live action adaptations. Buster Crabbe starred in 3 Flash Gordon serial films. The 1936 film Flash Gordon was
Why does that look more put together than the 80s film?
later turned into a feature-length film titled Flash Gordon or Rocket Ship, or Flash Gordon Spaceship to the Unknown, or Space Soldiers. The 1938 serial film Flash Gordon's Trip to Mars was later released as Flash Gordon The Deadly Ray from Mars, and the 1940 film Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe was condensed into a feature-length film titled The Purple Death from Outer Space.
What? The Purple Death? Ooh, so spooky. The Purple Death.
The 1954 live-action TV series starred Steve Holland as the titular character. Interestingly, the show was filmed in West Berlin and showed the real-life destruction in Germany because of the Second World War. The first 26 episodes were filmed less than a decade after the war, and the destruction was still afresh. The last 13, however, were filmed in France. The series was set in the year 3202. In Flash, Dale and Zarkov worked for the Galactic Bureau of Investigation. Even this show was later recut into a film in 1957. In 2007, when the Sci-Fi Channel premiered the Flash Gordon television series, Eric Johnson, who is also known for his work on
Oh my gosh. That was like a CW show.
Smallville, played the titular character, while the Fantastic Four and Alien vs. Predator Requiem star Gina Holden played Dale. Unfortunately, the show was canceled in 2008. However, in 1980, director Mike Hodges released the film Flash Gordon, starring Sam J. Jones as Flash Gordon, Melody Anderson as Dale Arden, Max von Sydow as Emperor Ming the Merciless, and Topol as Hans Zakov. One of the most notable features of the film is that the film's music was given by the British rock band Queen. Flash Gordon, 1980. In the film, Emperor Ming the Merciless of the planet Mongo wished to get rid of his boredom, and he thought of the novel idea of having some fun by remotely causing natural disasters on Earth to annihilate it. Meanwhile,
As you do.
in New York, the New York Jets football star Flash Gordon was traveling in a plane with Dale Arden that got hit by a meteorite. After the plane lost its pilots, Flash Gordon managed to crash land into a greenhouse that Dr. Hans
How convenient.
Zarkov owned. According to Zarkov, an alien entity was pushing the moon towards the Earth, which was causing natural disasters. He had secretly built a spacecraft and wished to use it soon to investigate his theory. Zarkov lured Flash and Dale to come aboard his spacecraft, which then launches to reach Mongo, only to be captured by Ming the Merciless's troops.
Wow. It even kind of does look a little bit like, from this angle, it kind of does look like Wallace's rocket.
Ming ordered Dale to be presented later for his pleasure, while Zarkov was to be reprogrammed and Flash executed. However, Ming's daughter Aura fell in love with Flash at first sight, and she tricked Ming's men and helped Flash escape captivity. Together, they escaped to Arborea, the kingdom ruled by Baron. Flash then learnt to use the telepathic communicator and helped Dale escape from Ming's bedchamber. As Dale and Zarkov were escaping from the city, they get captured by the Hawkmen of Prince Voltan and are taken to the Sky City. Meanwhile, at Arborea, Prince Baron wanted to kill Flash indirectly by making him perform a deadly ritual. Flash tried to escape from there, but Baron followed. However,
I'm not following the logic of why everyone wants to kill him now. I mean, Ming at least makes sense, like he's the dictator and he wants to execute, but I thought Baron was cool.
both of them get captured by the Hawkmen. Aura returns to Mingo City. She is captured on account of treason and is sentenced to spend her life on the ice moon Phrygia. Back in the Sky City, Flash and Baron are forced to fight a death match, but Flash saves Baron's life, hence earning his loyalty and trust. Soon, Ming's metal-faced head of police named Clytus arrived at Sky City to kill Flash and take Dale to Ming. However, Flash and Baron kill him. When Ming later arrives at the scene, he gets impressed with Flash's achievements and offers him an opportunity to rule Earth in return for his loyalty. Naturally, Flash declined the offer, and Ming ordered Sky City to be destroyed along with Flash. However, before the city could be destroyed, he escaped in a rocket and found Volton in Arborea, where Flash hatches an elaborate plan to take down Ming. Together with Baron, Volton, Dale, Zarkov, and Aura, Flash Gordon manages to save the day and halt Earth's impending destruction.
That sounds like an absolutely bananas plot.
Forget it, Ming. Dale's with me.
Flash!
Apart from these, there were 2 unofficial films based on Flash Gordon. In 1967, there was a B-movie styled Turkish adaptation named Flash Gordon's Battle in Space. In 2013, director Rob Pratt made an animated fan film titled Flash Gordon's Classic.
Nice.
5. Animated versions. The New Adventures of Flash Gordon. 1979. Star Wars, released in the year 1977, and was a mammoth success. Naturally, other people also wanted to bathe in its glory. As a reaction to Star Wars, Filmation produced Flash Gordon in 1979. The series was originally titled Flash Gordon, but to distinguish it from the previous versions, they used the expanded name officially. It featured several of the original characters.
Looks like had the budget of either a He-Man episode or a Jen the Holograms episode.
It remained largely true to its print source material. As far as the story is concerned, Flash and his friends travel to Mongo, where they are forced to battle Ming the Merciless. During his adventures, Flash meets several original characters, like the leader of the Lion People, King Thun, Prince Baron, King Volton, etc.
It's like a bombardment from space.
Flash Gordon, the greatest adventure of all. 1982.
Why does that look even cheaper?
Written by Samuel A. Peoples and produced by Filmation. This animated television film held rather serious tones for a film meant for children. Interestingly enough, this one was set during the Second World War, and the basic plot revolves around Ming supplying arms and ammunition to Adolf Hitler.
What? Okay.
In an attempt to divide and rule Earth. Defenders of the Earth. 1986. The show majorly revolved around the adventures of the Defenders against their arch-enemy named Ming the Merciless, who wished for several things like annihilating Earth, eliminating the Defenders, and sometimes taking control of the universe
Why is he green?
itself. Apart from Flash Gordon,
Hey, it's the Phantom!
the show featured Mandrake, the Phantom, Lothar, and younger Defenders like Lothar Jr., Jetta Walker, Rick Gordon, and Kashin.
Thing doesn't work. There won't be enough left to matter.
Okay, now it's looking more like G.I. Joe.
Hold on!
In the show's pilot episode, Flash Gordon crash lands in his spacecraft just outside Lothar and Mandrake's mansion. He had come to Earth to warn them about Ming's impending attack on Earth because his own planet of Mongo was running out of resources. Later,
Taking lots of liberty there.
Flash, Mandrake, and Lothar go to the Phantom to seek his help. The basic premise of the show is Ming the Merciless trying out various weapons and conspiracies to seek control of Earth, and the Defenders of the Earth thwarting his evil plans.
What?
Flash Gordon, 1996. In this series, Flash and Dale are teenage children of U.S. Air Force personnel who get trapped on Mongo after thwarting one of his attempts to destroy Earth.
We're from Earth. Friends.
Not friends.
6. Future. What was supposed to be an animated Flash Gordon film 2 years ago is now set to be released as a live-action film by Taika Waititi. The
Oh god, no, please, no.
Thor Ragnarok director is reportedly a huge fan of Flash Gordon and was heavily inspired by the 1980 film as a child. There's no news about the cast or a release date, but the film should be in theaters probably by the end of next year. However, this is mere speculation. As far as the cast is concerned, we are yet to hear from the executives or the Kiwi director. But since Taika holds the reins to the film, it wouldn't come off as a surprise if Chris Hemsworth is cast as Flash Gordon, Tessa Thompson as Dale, and the Grandmaster Jeff Goldblum as Zarkov.
Okay, I am apparently in the minority of people who did not like Thor Ragnarok. Like, I don't know why they went the direction they did with Thor, but just looking at him, it's like, that's not Thor. I don't know who that guy is, but that is not Thor. And the fact that they smashed it together with Planet Hulk of all things. Like, Planet Hulk, from what I understand, it is a very dark story, and it is considered one of the great Hulk stories. And it's very big with a lot of shit going down, so it's like, why are you crashing together two big stories into one movie, condensing both of them, and kind of mucking it up? But then again, Taika Waititi is also the person who decided to butcher Gore the God Butcher, so that shouldn't surprise anybody.
All of these actors have worked with Waititi and would suit perfectly in their respective roles.
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, that's creepy. Okay, so thank you, Marvelous Videos, for giving us the rundown on that. I hope that getting the muting the music in time helped me, because I don't want to deal with YouTube again. Okay, let's see. So found this video, Flash Gordon's Complicated Legacy from actual fandom. So let's see about this complicated legacy.
Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, Bill Finger and Bob Kane, Stan Lee. These names are often revered as the trailblazers who laid the groundwork for comic books to become the cultural force that they are today. When you consider the absolutely massive, unprecedented success of comics-inspired film, those names grow even larger, shine brighter in the pop culture memory of audiences.
I'm gonna go to this comic shop. It looks cool.
But one name that is often overlooked is just as deserving of that reverence. If you're a fan of comics and science fiction, the long-reaching influence of Alex Raymond, creator of Flash Gordon, cannot be overstated. You probably have a passing familiarity with the character of Flash Gordon, most likely due to the 1980 schlockfest film of the same name.
Alright.
As goofy as that movie is, and don't get me wrong, it's a classic even if not in the way it was intended, you might be surprised to learn that Flash Gordon's original incarnation is actually a very fascinating work of fiction. There's quite a lot to learn and appreciate about the history and publication
That's really cool art. I especially like the one with the Hawkman diving down like that. That looks really cool.
of the iconic comic strip. Although Buck Rogers came before Flash Gordon as an early 20th century comic strip sci-fi adventurer, we begin this series on the history of comics with Flash Gordon, for various reasons. One important distinction: despite Flash Gordon owing many aspects to his forebear, Flash Gordon creator Alex Raymond not only wrote the original comic strips, he illustrated them as well. These early comic strips are still gorgeous to behold some 9 decades later. They've influenced every single comic book you've ever enjoyed in some manner.
What is he wearing in that panel? Oh wait, that's when they're in Phrygia, I think, because we saw that queen earlier and she wore something similar to that. But it looks like he's wearing plastic wrap all over his body. It looks very funny. But you're not drowned, but you'll have to live in the water world forever. Oh, so it looks like there is a bit of a love triangle that happens eventually.
Or another. Buck Rogers was certainly successful for its time, and being the first of his kind is an eternal honor that cannot be taken away from his creator, sci-fi writer Philip Francis Nolan. But Flash Gordon quickly became the more popular strip of the two, and in my humble opinion, is far more compelling. Maybe one day I'll cover Buck Rogers and Mr. Nowlan, but personally, I've always been more drawn to Flash Gordon. If you enjoy this video, I humbly ask you to give it a like, as that helps it to be seen by more people. I hope you'll subscribe and follow as I explore the history of comics, science fiction, fantasy, and more. Today we'll look at Flash Gordon on the Planet Mongo, a collected edition featuring the first few years of syndicated comic strips, published in newspapers around the globe.
Alright, so why is the legacy complicated?
By the late 1930s, the strip was published in 130 newspapers and translated into 8 foreign languages. Over 50 million people read the strips in these first few years. This was a time before any science fiction or fantasy that we take for granted now. Imagine being alive in those days, the pure joy and excitement that must have emulated from these early strips.
It must have been wild back then, being like the first of the sci-fi authors, because you're basically helping invent a whole new genre that never existed before. So not only it's like a new comic strip, it's a new media, or it's a new genre completely. That must be wild.
The John Carter of Mars series by Edgar Rice Burroughs was popular at the time and definitely established a lot of the tropes and trends that we still see in sci-fi today. But that series only existed in prose format. In 1933, King Features Syndicate, which still owns the right to Flash Gordon today, attempted to purchase the rights to John Carter for a Sunday comic. But Burroughs
That's also some really cool looking art.
couldn't agree to the terms. So they chose to create their own character, their own world, a brand new adventure. And history was written, as Flash Gordon soon became a household name, beloved by children and adults alike. Flash Gordon is the protagonist of a space opera adventure comic strip, which was created and initially illustrated by Alex Raymond for the first several years. Raymond, who was born October 2nd, 1909, was an American cartoonist born to a civil engineer father who encouraged his son's artistic growth from a very early age. Sadly,
That's actually kind of cute.
Raymond's father died when Alex was only 12,
Aww.
leaving a void where once was a proud father to guide him on his chosen path. Alex Raymond was of course devastated, and decided that his future as an artist was not a viable career. He was accepted into a prep school where he began a very different hobby, that of a football player on an athletic scholarship.
Gee, I wonder where he got the inspiration to make Flash Gordon an athlete.
As distinct from drawing as an activity could be, yet the experience would influence Raymond's work later, when he envisioned an American athlete who's jettisoned into outer space, using his athletic prowess to save damsels and conquer alien tyrants. Many artists have cited Raymond as an inspiration for their work, including comic artists Jack Kirby, Bob Kane, Russ Manning, and Al Williamson. George Lucas cited Raymond as a major influence for Star Wars, as well as Buck Rogers and John Carter.
I mean, it's not hard to see the influence. I would be surprised if he wasn't an influence on Star Wars.
First published on January 7th, 1934, the strip was inspired by and created to compete with the already established Buck Rogers adventure strip. Long before Aquaman was created to compete with Namor, before DC or Marvel even existed.
Wait, the Aquaman was specifically made to compete with Namor? Honestly, I don't know much about Aquaman, but I've read a little bit of Namor's stuff, and I love him even though he's basically a prick. I love Namor because he is such a persnickety character.
Existed to compete with one another. These first comic strips were so popular that they sparked a brand new, highly competitive market, one of comic strips featuring stoic men, and of course it was always men in those days, who were respectively the only men capable of saving these poor, hostile alien planets. Raymond set out to create a similar experience to what Buck Rogers was providing so well, yet distinct enough to stand on its own, and perhaps even become the more popular strip. Raymond took inspiration from the 1933 Philip Wiley novel When Worlds Collide, drawing on the themes of an approaching planet threatening the Earth, and an athletic hero, his girlfriend,
Ooh, I really love that panel. That's a really nice panel.
and a scientist, traveling to the new planet by rocket. This was the status quo for the strip in its first long-running story. As famed comic artist Alex Ross says in the foreword of On the Planet Mongo, Alex Raymond's influence extends to nearly every modern incarnation of science fiction and the superhero. Without Flash Gordon, there'd be no Superman or Batman, as Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster based Superman's uniform of tights and a cape on costumes worn by Flash Gordon, and Bob Kane fashioned the first appearance of Batman on the cover of Detective Comics number 27, based on a 1937 Raymond drawing of Flash Gordon. Again, it cannot be overstated how crucial Raymond's work would be to the media so many of us love today.
So pretty.
The Flash Gordon comic strip ran as a daily from 1934 to 1992, with the Sunday strip continuing until 2003, which offers a hint at how ubiquitous the character became and remained, even if he never hit the billion-dollar mark of his descendants, such as Batman. The sci-fi serial trappings and tropes that
I wonder if they did the live action Flash Gordon series and they made it like retro chic, like they are apparently going for with the Fantastic Four movie. I think that could work because I hear this a lot from readers and people on X that it's like, can we please go back to the 1930s idea of science fiction? Can we please just go back to hero fights off alien threats, or a hero goes exploring to different alien worlds and they're also wacky and kooky instead of these really quite miserable sci-fi romps. And I feel like this is Flash Gordon's time to come back, especially because other Pulp Fiction heroes are making a comeback. The Phantom has a new comic series. Solomon Kane has a brand new miniseries going on right now, The Serpent Ring. So I feel like now is Flash Gordon's time. And I don't know, maybe you can make something that's a little bit better than the 1980s movie. Though if they could get a really good band to do all the music like they did with the 80s movie, I think that would be really cool too.
Permeate George Lucas's Star Wars made it to blockbuster status first, as did 1978's Superman. In popular media, those properties became iconic beyond a level Flash Gordon had, cementing them each as American and global franchises. It could be argued that had a Flash Gordon film been produced prior to and
That's so... They redid the Star Wars poster. They couldn't even make a unique poster?
as lovingly as the first Star Wars and Superman films, the media landscape today could look entirely different. These original strips follow the adventures of Flash Gordon, a handsome polo player and Yale University graduate, and his companions Dale Arden and Dr. Hans Zarkov. The story begins with the Earth threatened by a collision with the planet Mongo. Dr. Zarkov invents a rocket ship to fly into space in an attempt to stop the disaster. Oddly, Zarkov kidnaps Flash and Dale. Landing on the planet Mongo and preventing the apocalyptic collision, the characters come into conflict with Ming the Merciless.
Back in the days where you could just crash land on an alien planet and not have to worry about if it has enough oxygen for you. Those were the days.
Mongo's evil ruler. We'll be discussing the problems with Ming and Mongo in just a few moments.
Oh, that's what he's referring to with the complicated legacy. Yeah, I mean, Ming, like the fact that his name is Ming, it's very obvious he's supposed to be a representation of like an Asian guy. Looks more Chinese is what they're supposed to go for, and the fact that he's yellow, yeah.
It would be irresponsible not to. As you read through this beautiful collection, as the years pass from 1934 to 1937, you're able to see Raymond's art style evolve.
He really liked drawing Flash Gordon in nothing but a Speedo.
It was breathtakingly drawn and painted from the first strip, and yet somehow he still transcends himself year after year, with brushstrokes described by comic artist Jerry Robinson as sleek, brilliantly polished, particularly in the final years of his run. Historian of science fiction art Jane Frank asserted that because of his work on Flash Gordon, Alex Raymond is one of the most famous science fiction artists of all time, despite never contributing an illustration to any science fiction magazine or book. Raymond's vision of spacefaring adventure and stoic heroism went on to influence those mediums and genres more than almost any other artist, save for Jack Kirby, Wally Wood, Mobius, and a few others. Science fiction historian John Clute has said that the comics version of Flash Gordon was graceful, imaginative, and soaring, and he included it on his list of the most important American science fiction comics. As we learned earlier, Batman and Superman were benefactors of Flash Gordon's design, but so too was DC Comics' Hawkman costume, which was based on the Hawkmen characters in Raymond's Flash Gordon comic strip. Die! Flash Gordon remains a cultural figure even now.
We're getting no help from Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon? By the way, that's a compliment.
And yeah, Peter Quill is an updated, quirkier version of the archetype established by Flash Gordon. The character was featured in 3 serial films starring Buster Crabbe, all of which were very popular at the time. Beginning on April 22, 1935, the strip was adapted into The Amazing Interplanetary Adventures of Flash Gordon, a 26-episode weekly radio serial. The series followed the strip very closely, amounting to essentially a week-by-week adaptation of the Sunday strip for most of the run. As you read through On the Planet Mongo, keen eyes will spot the evolution from more classically illustrated figures into a more proto-comic book style. The genesis of what would become Superman, Batman, and Captain America.
Well, yeah, it's like Kubert, or no, it was Buscema. It was Buscema, yeah. He mentioned that he had went into advertising work for a little bit, and then he had to relearn how to draw comics because it's a very different style with different requirements. And so, yeah, I can see the difference between the first Flash Gordon stuff and the later ones where he evolves more as a comic book artist.
The DNA of Flash Gordon still thrives today in newer characters like Star-Lord, Mal Reynolds, and pretty much every character from Firefly, Poe Dameron, and even less obvious examples such as Captain Marvel. Alex Raymond's influence...
Did he just speed by the Futurama references?
...is undeniable. But when we look back at history to find the best of humanity, we have to be honest about the worst aspects too. So let's address the racist caricature in the room. Like many during that era, long before the internet and even before the concepts of xenophobia or racism were as studied as they are today, Raymond and many others were susceptible to that repulsive propaganda. In this era in which Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are increasingly targeted due to misinformation and bigotry, it's important to call out these historical examples that most definitely played a role in building a somewhat intolerant populace. As much positive influence as Flash Gordon has had, xenophobia was at a fever pitch in the 1930s, particularly in regard to Asian and Asian American people. And tragically, that attitude still exists. This repulsive reactionary impulse was, and often still is, referred to as yellow peril, or yellow terror, or yellow specter.
This is the first time I have ever heard of yellow terror. I have never heard that term before until now. Maybe it's because I have a sheltered life, but I have never heard that. I've seen the Stop Asian Hate stuff, but I have never heard of yellow peril.
Yellow peril is a racist color metaphor that represents the people of East Asia as an existential danger to the Western world. It's a fear derived not from concern with a specific...
I know it's a racist caricature, but it does look very funny. Egg foo. He's just a giant egg.
source of danger or from any one people or country, but from a vaguely ominous existential fear of the faceless, nameless hordes of yellow people opposite the Western.
Okay, we are skipping past this because we get it, we get it, we get it. It was wrong, it was wrong, it was wrong. The merciless, here we get it. Alright, how long is he gonna go on about the racism?
Here, science fiction. Academic Frank H. Wu said that anti-Chinese sentiment incited by contemporary politicians such as Steve Bannon and corporatists like yellow peril xenophobia, which was then at its height in the U.S., be influenced in similar ways. After all,
wait, is he... He's not making the sentiment that Flash Gordon encouraged Asian hate, right? I mean... whatever.
Steve Bannon and Peter Thiel are still openly spreading these archaic ideas, then we still exist in a world poisoned by empty yet extremely harmful propaganda developed at Disney Fox with Taika Waititi writing and directing.
And by the way, no, we do not have like a world, like an overarching, socially acceptable propaganda. People call out Trump all the time for even the most innocuous shit. What are you talking about?
But sadly, in August 2019, that project was canceled. Waititi, the visionary director of Thor Ragnarok and Jojo Rabbit, was an apt choice for the adaptation, as he is of Asian descent and has shown a sensitivity to cultural and racial stereotypes.
Oh my god, can we please move on?
Passionate creators and an inclusive tone that places Flash Gordon alongside his iconic literary descendants like Batman and Superman.
Spent like 5 minutes talking about the racism. Even the other Pulp Fiction video, it mentioned, yes, there were those elements there, but he didn't dwell on it. And even when other sources were talking about Ebony White from The Spirit, it's like, yes, this was a thing that happened. It was not okay to do. Let's move on to the rest of this work. So it's like, you do not need to spend 5 minutes talking about how, oh, this racist caricature, it influenced racism even to this day. And it's like, first off, hardly anybody outside of comic book X talks about Flash Gordon anyways. And if they tried to bring back Ming the Merciless in all his yellow glory, he would have been called out immediately. So, no, we're not still living in the 1930s. Get over it. You can mention it. We should remember this era and some of the bad stuff that was there, but get the fuck over it.
Superman. For now, this brilliantly crafted collection will have to do, along with the many low-budget adaptations and the So Bad It's Good film from 1980. But until someone with a humanist, anti-racist perspective is given...
Oh my god, we are moving on! Alright. Okay, so this is about the movie, and let's see, I'm hoping they don't play the music throughout because I really want to keep my channel. Alright, Flash Gordon, 1980, the epic 80s space opera that almost never was, from Retro Renaissance.
In response to the success of the Superman movie, a new film would be created. We would be introduced to a football star who finds himself on another planet to save our puny souls. So today, let's remember...
Flash!
Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Retro Renaissance, you beautiful people. Before we dive into the 1980s masterpiece, let's take a quick look at the history of Flash Gordon. And before we do that, I have some beef with the internet. Let's say I want some sweet Flash Gordon merch. So when I search Flash Gordon t-shirt, for example, you get these. And when I research Flash Gordon, this can come up. To be clear, the Flash is not Flash Gordon. Anyway.
The symbol does look very similar, though.
Flash Gordon all started back in 1934 with the success of the Buck Rogers comic. Teen Features Syndicate decided to create its own science fiction comic strip to compete with it. When coming up with the idea, they were inspired by the 1933 novel When Worlds Collide.
Racing through space toward an inevitable collision with this planet. Nothing is going to happen. When worlds collide, you'll see the most amazing, awe-inspiring scenes ever put on film. The forces of nature unleashed in all their terrifying force. Tremendous tidal waves smashing New York City.
The themes of an approaching planet threatening Earth, and the athletic hero, his girlfriend, and a scientist traveling to a new planet by rocket were adapted.
Seriously, why did he want to draw a Flash Gordon in a Speedo all the time? I mean, I appreciate it, but it's like, why is he almost always half naked? At least with Tarzan, it made sense.
By Alex Raymond, the creator of Flash Gordon. The initial storyline Raymond introduced were dismissed for not containing enough action sequences. Raymond reworked the story and sent it back. They liked it, and Raymond's first Flash Gordon story appeared in January 1934 alongside Jungle Jim. The Flash Gordon strip was well received by newspaper readers, becoming one of the most popular American comic strips of the 1930s. The comic strip follows the adventures of Flash Gordon, who was a handsome polo player and a Yale University graduate, and his companions Dale Arden and Dr. Hans Zarkov. The story begins with Earth being threatened by a collision with the planet Mongo. Dr. Zarkov invents a rocket ship to fly into space in an attempt to stop the disaster. Half mad, he kidnaps Flash and Dale, landing on the planet and halting the collision. They come into conflict with Ming the Merciless, Mongo's evil ruler. And that's the basic subtext of the Flash Gordon story. The imagery and context of Flash and Ming would prove to be problematic, but more on that in a little bit. After the huge success of the comic, Flash Gordon was featured in 3 serial films starring Buster Crabbe.
Vanish you to the clay caves.
They would be the titles Flash Gordon in 1936, Flash Gordon's Trip to Mars in 1938, and Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe in 1940. The first Flash Gordon serial remains copyrighted, but the compilation made of the second serial and the third serial itself are in public domain. I have went ahead and added one to the channel. There's a link in the description if you're keen to do so. Then, in 1980s, with an all-star cast, soundtrack by legendary rock band Queen,
because they were saying to us at the time, well, obviously the scoring will have to be done by the orchestra guy. You know, that's what movies are. They have to have orchestra underscores. And I was thinking, no, perhaps they don't. You know, if we could actually do this in a kind of rock style, it could really break some barriers down.
What could go wrong? Well, first we need to acknowledge the problematic tone mentioned earlier. Back in the 80s, we were, let's say, more ignorant and less sensitive. Recently, the movie has undergone some backlash because of its appropriation and racial undertones. An article by TheGuardian.com states it's not hard to pinpoint the mindset that inspired the creation of Flash Gordon's extraterrestrial nemesis, Ming the Merciless, back in 1934. Back then, the scariest thing you could imagine invading Earth is a gentleman of apparent East Asian extraction. It's clear you're not really frightened of aliens at all. Ming, along with are silly. Maybe it's because of the trouble on the set, which we will get to.
Well, see, dude? You didn't have to go in 5 minutes talking about how we all hate Asian people because of Flash Gordon. All you had to do was a minute. Or not even a minute, like 30 seconds being like, yes, this was a thing, and no, it is not okay.
Feeds the human spirit!
but it had a budget of $20 million, more than The Empire Strikes Back, which was released earlier.
Oh my god. Oh boy. So it had a bigger budget and it looked crappier.
That year. It took in only $27 million at the box office. So while it made a profit, it was not the juggernaut Universal had hoped for. The end of the film leads us to believe that there may be a sequel.
Oh. Yeah, that was not gonna happen.
Due to the reception and other factors, there was not. The sets and the salaries of the cast drove up the cost. And using
okay.
green screen and special effects were also very costly. Because of this, it made it difficult to manage a profit, and it is said that the senior designer of the film did many Fellini movies, a tone which was carried out in the film. And if you care what critics think, it currently has an 83% at Rotten Tomatoes and is certified fresh. All that being said, as a kid, you just watched movies. Good or bad, if a movie was on, that's just what you did. For me, I first saw Flash Gordon on HBO. Yes, our main TV had HBO because we were fancy like that. This movie filled me with all the joy a superhero-loving kid could imagine.
Alright, let's see.
Unbeatable. With all his men, he couldn't even kill Flash.
This football scene is what let me know that I was in for a fun ride.
Yeah.
Are your men on the right pills? Maybe you should execute that traitor.
So now let's talk about the cast. Well, some of them. Sam J. Jones was born August 12, 1954. After high school in 1972, Jones enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, where he played American football. With service in the Marines completed, he moved to Seattle seeking to join the Seahawks, but was rejected. Instead, in 1976, he played for their practice team, the Flyers, as a semi-professional. Sam married Lynn Eriks in 1982. They had 2 children and divorced in 1987. Sam would go on record saying he wasn't the greatest husband to Lynn. Following the divorce, he married Myrtle Blervac, a French actress he met while filming on the island of Mauritius. They were married in Nevada on August 15, 1987, and divorced 3 years later. He then married Ramona Lynn Jones on June 26,
He has a fantastic record with romantic relationships.
1992, and they have 3 children, and he would be our Flash Gordon. It is said that on the set, Sam J. Jones had disagreements with the director and producer of the film, Hodges, and producer De Laurentiis, and departed prior to post-production, which resulted in about half of his dialogue being dubbed by a professional voice actor, whose identity today is still a mystery.
He's a Canadian actor.
Oh, they didn't even credit the dude? Wow.
I do know his name. I can't remember it. Not because for any reason, but I just simply can't remember his name. He did sort of things like Thunderbird, one of those Thunderbird characters.
Looking back, Sam feels he was naive in the handling of the situation that led to the cult classic's biggest mystery to this day. However, in an interview since, Flash Gordon Star claimed it wasn't as severe as some may have thought. Speaking with Maxim in 2012, he said, "I didn't have a falling out with the director, but producer Dino De Laurentiis, and I bumped heads a few times. There were a few misunderstandings, and being naive at the age of 25, I just let the attorneys handle everything. I just let my representation handle it, and they did not do a very good job at all. The bottom line is they worked for me, and I take responsibility for what happened. I didn't go back for looping and dubbing, so they ended up using another actor to loop. I think about half the film was actually not my voice," he says.
A couple of times I think I got to tears, just being frustrated because, he was so specific and demanding about how he wanted his film to look like.
When Dino came on the set, people got so scared no work got done. He was to come on with 3 or 4 of his henchmen. They were carrying money in their pockets and things, and bags in black outfits. And Dino come. People were terrified when Dino was around. We get on like a house on fire, Dino.
So it was De Laurentiis. I think I've heard that name before, and he's really big in the Hollywood scene. So sounds like it was mostly his fault.
And I'm busy doing something. So, Dino, go off. We won't get anything done. Dino, you must. We can't get anything. Everyone's terrified of you. We can get bugger all done.
And I think he was a great Flash. While a different take on the Flash of the past, he was charismatic and brave. And he was also just a human. No superpowers here. And there would be some nods to Flash in the TV series and with Sam in Ted and Ted 2. As mentioned, Sam admits to being a bad husband to his first wife, Lynn.
My first marriage to Lynn. Lynn's a great lady. We have 2 great children, Matthew and Kaylin. Lynn was a great wife and a great mother, and I was just a horrible husband. I was a habitual adulterer, no fault of anybody but myself.
Well, at least he's taking responsibility for that.
You sit there, blame it on Hollywood, no, just blame it on Hollywood. What? It's just a matter of a man making wise decisions.
After Flash, Sam would have his ups and downs in the acting business and at some point just could not get roles. He was at a crossroads and he had a family. He thought, what do I do with this? How do I support my friends and family? He decided to get a job, not an acting job, a regular job. Since Sam was a former Marine, he used this to be security.
Average day is I get up at 3:30 a.m., cross-border security operations 101. We'll be under the radar today, low profile. We're crossing the border at any designated time between 5 and whatever it is, 5 a.m. on. You will not see our weapons. Our weapons are usually concealed. We're not in a combat zone. High risk, but not combat zone.
And on one tragic day, he took some sleeping pills, and his wife called his friend and then rushed over to save his life.
In between my 2 marriages, I was with a French model. I was madly in love with this lady, and she left me for another man, and I was devastated. So I'm looking at 2 things on how to get her back. I'm looking at a handgun.
Melody Anderson.
I don't mean to be insensitive, but we're trying to stay focused on Flash Gordon here.
Would be our Dale Arden. Melody Anderson was born on December 3rd, 1955, and is a Canadian retired actress and social worker and public speaker. She's also been in other TV movies such as Marilyn and Bobby, Her Final Affair, and TJ Hooker starring Captain Kirk. Like I said, although being mostly retired from acting, she said she would definitely be interested if they ever make a Ted 3. Instead of acting, Melody became licensed in California as a certified EMDR. Anderson is a licensed clinical social worker in the states of New York and California, with private practices in Manhattan and West Los Angeles. She also facilitates therapy groups at several treatment centers in the Los Angeles area. Anderson is an international lecturer, media spokesperson on addictions and the family. She has made presentations about substance abuse and other mental health related areas of.
Okay, so it looks like the rest of this is just going to be about the actors and not so much about Flash Gordon himself. Gordon's Alive, the documentary on Flash Gordon, and there's a segment there with Ming, so he's probably gonna bang his drum even more about the whole racist subtext there. Alright, well, looks like you can watch Flash Gordon on YouTube if you want. We've also got, let's see if the serials are here. Okay, so it looks like the first serial is here on YouTube, though broken up into different parts. The Cliffhanger serial. Let's see. Serials at midnight. So, Yeah, it does look like the serials are here. I wonder if the cartoons are here too. Looks like the cartoons are here too. We got the complete series on playlist for you guys to check out. Doesn't look like the 90s one is here. Flash Gordon. What's that one? Documentary extra. I wonder if that fan animation is in here. Okay, so the Flash Gordon Classic is here. Yeah, it looks like it. Sweet. Okay, so I'm not going to play that on here just because copyright again. So I think that's about it when it comes to Flash Gordon. Really, I find it so strange that the fan wiki wasn't completely done. Okay, so I hope you guys had as good of a night as I did. I'm gonna end before I accidentally trigger the bots again. But if you liked tonight's stream, let me know. Follow me on X if you want to vote for the next either character or artist that we cover. And I do have a bit of an announcement. So next week I'm going to be on vacation. I will do another Sunday stream, but I'm not going to be doing another stream or anything until the 11th, it looks like. So mark it on your calendars. I'm not going to be available for about a week and a half. Yeah, like the stream, comment what you liked about it, and I will see you all in the next one.